Where are you from, Janet?
I come from Southampton,
Oh,
but originally moved here in '83, and when my husband retired, and I've been here ever since.
and what did you do, you and your husband?
Well, my husband, as I say, was a photographer, journalist photographer is the best way to say it. He was freelance. He originally worked for an American agency in Southampton, because back in the days, sort of 60s and so on, when he started, it was absolute amazing place for, because everybody who was anybody came across from America by sea. So every week there was somebody famous or infamous coming in on one of the ships. You've got the Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mary, got the American liners as well, and the French. So they're all dropping off at Southampton. And as I say, you used to get, well, from the particular line, you would get a list of who was on board that particular journey coming over, and depending on the on who was who, got a lot of people who travelled then. I mean, you've got all the Elizabeth Taylor and Burton and oh well, just to say anybody who was anybody, and also of course not only the sort of celebrities in that score, but you've got people like the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, because they couldn't land in England because he was a bit persona non grata back in those days, but they would often travel to America and back to France, Paris, where they lived, and so the press would go on board, take pictures of them. Sorry, but they wouldn't come ashore.
Oh,
So I mean, there were people like that, and various stories. I can't remember half myself, but he had a fund of stories about meeting this one and that one, and of course, I mean, he wasn't the only one there. I mean, it was quite a crowd at the time with press. What we used to do is we had camping holidays, so we did it as sort of as cheaply as we could, but without sort of really slumming it, you know. And so we used, or I say we, Roger used to try and find something to hang the holiday on that he could sell, perhaps pictures from it, to magazines or newspapers when he got back, and quite often it paid for our holiday, you see. As I say, we did the bridge, we also did the running of the bulls in Pamplona, and we did the Palio in Siena, that is the horse racing. It's a medieval, the jockeys all dressed in medieval costume, and there's a big square in the town, and I think it's twice a year, but certainly it was August when we went. They they different sort of, for want of another word, parishes of the town, each have a jockey and a horse, and they hold these horse races. Well, as I say, we before we went, we knew that the bridge was being opened fairly near time, but we were going to Turkey anyway. But we just sort of thought, well, if we can use that as a part of, place to go as well. So as I say, he checked up with the heavy newspapers, the Telegraph and those sort of papers that might be interested, and they said yes. So he then contacted the Turkish embassy in London to find out if we could have permission to take photographs, and they gave him permission, and they also wrote to the bridge constructors and one thing and another, and we had an arrangement that on a certain date when we'd got to Istanbul, we met, I suppose, the PR man in a local hotel, and from there he took us down to the bridge, and we met the various construction people there, and then they sort of said, "Would you like to walk across?" So we said yes, and Roger took various pictures of it, and the one that was mainly used in the newspapers was from the Asian side. We found a sort of a raised bit of land, and were able to sort of take a whole picture with a couple of minarets in the foreground, and then we got ourselves back later, because there were ferries going across the Bosphorus. Fantastic. They're sort of crisscrossing it like buses. There's so many of them. You only have to wait about 10 minutes for another ferry official ferry across. So it's quite fun. And so, as I say, that's when we took the photographs, or Roger did. I've got a copy of it, but it's a newspaper one, so it's a bit grainy and what have you.
So
but,
you
that was my claim to fame.
being the first
person, yes.
The first woman.
Well, yes, to walk, because of course, once it opened, it wasn't. I don't know whether they had a walkway as well, but generally speaking, of course, it was a motorway across.
How long did it take?
Oh, it's only just about like walking across the Severn Bridge. About as wide. It may have been a bit wider, but sort of it's just this channel, which is the Bosphorus, of course, that's between two parts. Istanbul itself is on two sides. You see, the old Istanbul is on the European side. Well, not necessarily just the older part, but it is sort of split. It's actually Istanbul, or it was called Constantinople originally, on the European side. On the southwestern, the other side, it's there is a certain amount of commercial stuff there, but the other bank is slightly less commercial. But the place there is Scutari, which was very famous in the days of because Florence Nightingale's hospital was at Scutari in the Crimean War.
Wow.
But anyway, that's it. We didn't go any further than Istanbul because I was the driver. My husband didn't drive, and that was a 2,000-mile journey. So.